How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, Scales and Tails, your favorite swim bait podcast. We're joined by a gentleman all the way down there in North Carolina. We just had Alex on episode 167, who was the first Carolina guy I feel like we've had on either ever or in a long time. And lo and behold, 4 episodes later, we're having his buddy. Alex was actually with Caleb when he was recording that episode. And I think Caleb may have said something from the background a couple times in that episode. So we're going to interview Caleb. Caleb from York Casting Co. You guys might be familiar with. We're going to hear his backstory, kind of hear about York Casting Co. And then obviously, as always, we're going to dive into a whole bunch of holes into conversations that probably will go a little bit too long, but that's okay because you guys enjoy listening and we like yapping. So, Caleb, introduce yourself, man, before we get too crazy into conversation today.
What's up, everybody? My name is Caleb York, and I am an avid swim bait fisherman. There's obviously a ton more to the story than that, but just a quick overview on what York Casting Co. is and, kind of what we do. York Casting Co. started almost 4 years ago. Come March, it'll be 4 years. And we started as a guide company for striper on the lakes, specifically with fly rods, which is funny. So I originally am a fly fishing guide, and that's long story short how I got into swim bait fishing because there's a ton of similarities between fly fishing with streamers and fishing swim baits. Very visual. You're provoking these fish to eat and triggering them. One on one. Combat fishing type stuff. So we quickly got into bass fishing and everything else, the electronics, and I needed money. I was broke. So, I mean, I started taking people out on just electronic trips. Like, these rich dudes get a new boat on Lake Norman. I go out on their boat and set up all their electronics and show them how to use it. And then that transferred into us doing a partnership with Flycraft, which is a raft company, which we love our raft. And so we started doing a lot of river, striper, smallie, and trout stuff. And so, yeah, it was just a whole guide package. And I have a couple guides who work for me right now. And then we met Trevor. We went to Canada with Trevor, and Trevor is a lure carver. So we started messing around with Trevor's baits, tweaking them, changing them, doing all types of stuff. And me and Trevor and the boys really just all kind of hit it off. So we've been working on resin baits, custom baits, since July
Mhm.
of this past year. So for about 6.5 months. And so now we're a bait company too. And so we guide and we make baits. And so we're the creators of this little nugget right here that a lot of you guys have seen. And then we also have this guy coming out in February. That's the York Glide. And then the Texas Largemouth Slammer, which is the Ace. So right now we're in production for the Ace coming out January 10th. When this comes out, it will have already dropped. And then the York Glide in February, and the Nugget's always up all the time. So if you guys follow us on Instagram, you can follow that. So that's York Casting. It's myself, Mike, we call him Schmike, and Trevor are the main three. And then Alex comes in and helps us out a lot too, and works for us as well at times. So
Sweet, man. So
that's
yeah,
pretty
we
much the overview of York Casting. Yeah.
yeah, I was about to say we had Trevor on, like, dude, it was literally the week before I think you guys left for Canada. It was right around the time that you had asked him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I got to get everything around and stuff." So that's it's kind of cool to hear that story. And it was right before, so Trevor was kind of like talking about his expectations and stuff to be in Canada, and he was super excited to fish with you guys and everything. And it's cool that that trip kind of has led to where we're talking about it probably 7 months later if it was around July. We're recording this on January 5th, so you guys will be listening to this a little while after the fact. But it's cool to see what that 6 or 7 months has done for the group of you guys and kind of where it's at now.
It's insane, man. I mean, literally brings chills to my arms. Like, to be from a state of almost brokenness from swim baits. It is hilarious how the tables turn so fast, and things can happen when you just put your head together and decide that you're gonna do something and there's no other option. That's really what's pushed us to the point we're at right now. We all put our heads together and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it to the best of our ability and make the best products that we can make. So it's undeniable. No one can hate. No one can say like we're gimmicky or we're taking advantage of the fad or whatever. Because we've done like 3 years of work in like 6 months. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? And spent over 1,000 hours prototyping the Nugget and the York Glide specifically.
Yeah, so sick, dude. I mean, if you go on your page, Caleb, and they scroll through, I mean, they'll see all the reels. If they go on Alex's page, they'll see stuff about the Nugget. I mean, Skinny Water Boys obviously he's a big fan of the Ace. He's post what he catch that 10 the other day on it or something like that. Some crazy big fish. Like
Yeah. Uh huh.
he's been catching a bunch of fish on it. Elam's been catching a lot of fish on the Ace. Like it's a bait that a lot of
Yeah.
guys. Maybe not a lot of guys have right now, but it's a bait that's getting content put out there to win the fact when you guys drop it in the next couple days. Like guys are going to know what it is and they're going to pick themselves up one based off what they've seen these
Right.
other guys do with it.
Yeah, and I mean the thing about it is the Ace is just a certified fish getter. Like Trevor already had the Ace before we ever went to Canada. We smoked fish in Canada on it, specifically pike.
Hmm.
But it just had a little wobble to it that I didn't love. And again, like when we put our heads together, we said, like, listen, we're gonna make everything the best it can
Yeah.
be. So we went back to work on the Ace, and now I'm a true well. And the thing I was going with is the fact the Ace before we ever even perfected it was a fish getter.
Yeah.
Like all the baits that those guys you were just naming are talking about are the old Ace. The one that's not perfectly refined. So we did a couple things to it now, and that's why we haven't been dropping it consistently because I just, the worst thing as a small company you can do is have to deal with issues.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that it was perfect. So it's a fish getter before it was perfect, and now it's perfect. I went out yesterday and threw it for 15 minutes out on Lake Norman and got bit. So
Heck yeah, dude, that's awesome. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about from Canada to now. We'll just kind of glaze over that whole process a little bit more in depth, and then we can kind of talk about what you guys are working on currently. So when you guys got back, was that the first time that you had like really fished Trevor's baits like hardcore over the course of a week? And is that when you were like, oh man, like I want to do something with Trevor if he's down for that, or if he has the same like mindset and wants to involve us with it?
well, what it really was more than anything was the fact that I guide glide baits, and I had fished a ton. I mean, I have. If you saw my bait wall, it's disgusting.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying I have the most swim baits ever. I'm just saying the amount of money that I've spent on swim baits
Yeah.
is not good. And the point is when I'm mainly using a 6 or 7 inch glide bait with clients who have never thrown them. I mean, dude, they're breaking off. They're breaking the bait, slamming them on dogs,
Yeah.
breaking the tail off constantly, right? So I was already in the process of eagerly trying to make my own baits or
Hmm.
work with a bait maker or whatever. And, the bait making community is not the one that's like, the pro bass community where it's like, oh yeah, we'll send you some baits and we'll sponsor you.
Yeah, we'll
Like
send you 100
that's
baits a
just not
month.
how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's not you're not going to get a big box full of baits. Like if they like send you one or two, then that's a blessing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just crazy in and of itself. So I was really already working on building my own baits,
Hmm.
and was already over $1,000 into the building process of making my own bait. And I was just running into the recarve problem over and over and over again. And so I kind of put it on hold. And
Yeah.
then lo and behold, a couple months later, Trevor hit me up and he was like, dude, this is what I want to do. You have, the ability to fish it and prototype it. And obviously, after many conversations, understood that I knew how to tune these baits and how
Hmm.
to reweight them and mess with them in 1,000 different ways to get what I wanted. From watching guys like Butch Brown and all the OGs do that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I just took my baits and started messing with them if I wasn't getting what I wanted. And so it taught me a lot that Trevor hadn't spent a lot of time working on.
Hmm.
And so we quickly saw that, very good congruency between our relationship of I'm action fish bites tuning, being on the water, perfecting,
Yeah.
and he is very good at carving, understanding physics of a bait and symmetrics,
Hmm.
understanding, where to put this, that, or the other. I mean, you name it.
Right. Yeah.
Hooks, the joint screws, whatever. Like he understands that a lot better than I do,
Mhm.
and is a lot more patient than I am as well. So he can mess up, fix it, go back. I'm the type of guy who, if I was carving and I messed up, I'm done with that
Yeah.
carving, new
Yeah.
carving. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, Trevor is much more patient and much more able to come up with true art,
Mhm.
and so I think in this day and age, back, 20 years ago, you could have gotten away with just a wood shaped fish that's painted nice with an eye on it, right?
Yeah.
But if we're coming in the game now, it has to look pretty, it has to swim pretty,
Mhm.
you got to come with the total package. And so, us combining our knowledge, the more we talked about things and what we wanted, just seemed to line up over and over and over again. And so, to go back to your original question, yeah, in Canada, we fished the baits a bunch. But I was already really hoping that it worked out before we ever even went to Canada and before
Right.
I ever smashed him on the baits. I was confident that if he would be willing to listen to what I had to say, and I listened to what he had to say, that we would come up with exactly what I was looking for,
Right.
whether he already had the bait or not.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. So, I mean, that Canada trip was kind of really the final nail in the coffin. Like, he got to see the way you maybe manipulate his baits to get him to meet your specifics that you kind of want, whether it's like you were saying,
Right, right,
a
yeah.
slight shimmy or whatever it may be, maybe make it a little bit faster sinker or whatever else, how to swim it, maybe a way he didn't think of. And he was kind of the way to for you to help kind of just get your foot in the door. Oh my gosh, this cat get your foot in the door and like really make it so you could have baits on the boat that were almost expendable for people to blow. They were maybe not the best casters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing that I brought to the table was my sales background, my
Yeah.
ability to generate statement, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was the thing that he had really struggled with leading up, because he had a full-time job. I mean, he
Hmm.
wasn't able to build baits and promote baits and get footage of baits and everything. And same, again, I just explained what he means to me. That
Yeah.
Canada trip, though, when we first got there, we were fishing the Nugget specifically, and I was like, bro, I just don't see how this is gonna play.
Hmm.
Like, it's a tiny bait. I had never fished micro glides before. I was like, why wouldn't I just fish a jerk bait?
Yeah.
Why, I'm coming up with all these devil's advocate things, and that's
Hmm.
how we do around here. 10 negative questions, and if all of them have positive answers, then we keep going. You know
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so we he started fishing the Nugget, and I started fishing the Nugget, and then he catches a giant smallmouth on it right in front of me. And I'm talking about, these are like at the dock of the resort that we're
Mm.
about to fly out of.
Yeah.
So like, these are fished for every single day. Like,
Hmm.
they're tough to catch fish. And he stuck a giant smallie on it, and I was like, let me see that thing. I started messing around with it, and we quickly realized that we fish very differently,
Yeah.
like, to your point.
Hmm.
So the way he works a glide, way different than the way I work a glide. And you can both effectively fish the same glide bait in many different ways, right?
Hmm.
So when I'm watching him fish the ace, it looks good for what he's trying to do. But for me, I needed it to do a couple more things. Do
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in Canada, when we're on the boat together, I mean, dude, that was huge for me to be fishing and showing him, and him to be fishing and showing me. And so we're in person,
Hmm.
with interacting with fish, with the baits, talking through all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly huge for what happened in the future, what's gotten us to where we're at now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So yeah, it's like it's easier. I mean, dude, that Canada trip sounds like it was the like I said, the final nail in the coffin. Like you guys are both there breaking down the glide bait on how you'd fish it rather than you'd like what, like FaceTiming him or sending him videos like, hey, this is
Right.
Caleb, this is how I fish it. It's doing this, 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 and you send it over to him and you wait a couple hours for him to be able to respond and go out on the water and show you how he moves his reel to get it to do what he does. And it's just like, dude,
Right. Right. Right.
that's
Right.
not the way to conduct business in 2024, 2025. Like you hands-on
Yeah. No, you
stuff.
can't.
Yeah, hands-on stuff, a phone call, but essentially it's something that you guys have to see and hand the rod back and forth to kind of really get down each other's opinions and I guess more mannerisms on how you guys handle input the bait and stuff.
Right.
Like if you're using, yeah, I mean, dude, there's just so many possibilities on how it can just get miscued over a video. Like if you don't tell him what gear ratio reel you're using, and he's like, dude, what the hell are
Yeah,
you
that's a
doing? Like
big
I
one.
can, yeah, he's like, I can make this bait do exactly what you want it to with this reel, but you're like, I don't have that reel. This is what I'm working with type thing. Like there's so many
Right.
variables to it that if you just do it in person and you guys are able to talk, hatch ideas over, it goes so much further than anything else past that.
Well, I think it's funny. We talk about it all the time when we're on the phone because we still do plenty of phone communication,
Yeah.
obviously. But it's funny, like the only lingo for glide bait fishing and talking about how you were fishing a glide is
Yep.
sound effects.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
real
boop,
sounds or
boop, boop,
real
boop,
inputs.
boop, boop, boop. And so we'll be doing that over the phone. Sometimes my wife will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
she's like in the other room. I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to tell him how I'm reeling this
Mhm.
bait," and like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all types of stuff. It's funny though. That's the glide bait lingo.
Yeah, and then like even to that point, like past the sound effects, I mean, dude, there's two categories that generally hold a bait, and it's either like the choppy or the wide glide. Like that's the two.
Right.
Obviously, you have baits that can do both, but if you're holding up a K9 or a 250 and you're like, oh, this is a wide glide, and then you hold up whatever else it may be, and you're like, this is a choppy glide. You're like, okay, yep, I know what you mean by that. I have a general term to the idea of what you're trying to get at, where is if you're in person and you're
100%.
like
Right.
trying to show like this bait can swim to one side better, or short chop or whatever. Like, dude, there's so much stuff that you don't that maybe you can't like I can put into words from how I fish it, and if you don't know how I talk, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? To a point of
Right. Yeah.
your wife
100%.
hearing you make the sound effects. Like it's something that you can't really like there's terms for it, but you have to kind of put your own lingo or jargon onto it to kind of really
Right.
prove your point. And then after that fact, if you're trying to sell a bait that short chop's really good or hits a long chop or whatever it may be, you have to make a video for it because you saying this to your
Right.
5,000 followers, that's going to resonate with maybe 10 of them, and that's because they fished with you in the boat and they know how you talk or they know how you
Right.
fish your
Right.
baits. Like,
100%.
dude, there's just so much to it that just the umbrella term like glide or like wide and choppy like are almost not enough anymore. Like 2 years ago, that was
Right.
fine, but now it's like there's so many like quote unquote subcategories of these baits. It's crazy.
Yeah, and when we're making the Ace and the York Glide, I mean, we're going for a somewhat of a hybrid. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Something that can have the ability to sit there and really hunt on a
Mhm.
slow glide and get out a little bit wider than it would in its chop,
Yeah.
and then be able to burn down and come super tight like a three piece.
Hmm.
Is really the standard these days, which is crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I agree. There is a couple companies, that in my head have the standard category separated.
Yeah.
One of them is Buca, for
Mhm.
instance. He
Yep.
has the V joint
Yeah.
and he has the trick shad. The V joint, like I fish the V joint a ton,
Hmm.
and I am a huge fan of the V joint.
Yeah.
But it's a very specific time and place because it is heavily on that wide glide side of things and not so much on your reaction style eats.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas then he has trick shad, and that's all just, chop, 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 and
Hmm.
get a reaction bite. Same with throwback and the metro and retro or
Yeah.
whatever. But you're right. For the most part, it's getting to a point where they're all kind of
Hmm.
hybridizing for the majority of, especially your 7-inch baits.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it's almost like, dude, it's kind of funny how guy, dude, it's kind of like politics. How yeah, you can say you're in the middle, but you definitely lean one way or the other. Like there's guys who like, oh, dude, I'll fish any glide
Right.
bait. But you look on the boat or you look in their boat deck and they have eight choppy glides compared to two choppy glides tied on or in their box, and it's like, I think I kind of
Right.
have you figured out, man. Like you're not fooling anybody. Like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll fish a wide glide, but I know what you want to do most of the time. Like it's funny,
Yeah.
and it's not to disown anybody or that does one thing or another, but that's just how it is. People kind of flow to one side or the other, and yeah, they might mess with the other one, but they definitely have a homeboy who they're fishing their choppy glide because they like it over somebody else's wide glide or their other dude's wide glide. Like it's
Right.
just funny how it works like that.
Well, yeah, and I'll just say my own preference is definitely more choppy,
Mhm.
mainly just because I cover a lot of water,
Yeah.
so like the slow and methodical, like I have to be in, a really, really condensed area to feel confident, getting them to come eat the wide glide. Like I have to know there's a lot of fish in this area.
Yeah.
Let me slow down, let me cover this water nice and slow with this wide glide, have a lot of drawing power because it's, obviously
Mhm.
covering more side to side water. But outside of that, I mean, dude, I'm flying around burning like crazy
Yeah.
and, trying to create reaction strikes over cover and stuff personally
Yeah.
too. So, and
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of dudes who are, not OG swim baiters, I don't even think we're old enough to be OG swim baiters.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, so like at the end of the day, the OG guys, have spent more time with more stuff and have a more tunnel vision way of the way that they think. Whereas I just like to catch fish on glides,
Right.
period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, covering water is the way to do it.
Yeah. And like my mindset has always been, especially if I'm fishing off the board like I usually am, I want to fish like majority of the time. I feel like a slow glide, like the fish will follow that for 20 yards before they decide to eat it. Like there has to be really a selling point for them to come up and eat it. Whereas a choppy glide, dude, you'll have a fish come up and just smack it just because it's just catching
Out
its
of left
attention.
field.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
if you're standing by a road, like standing in the school zone, and like you're watching cars go by at 20 miles an hour, that never really catches your attention. But if you see a Honda Civic rip through at 70 miles an hour, it snaps your neck. You're like, what the hell's going
Yeah.
on? I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
that's kind of the same thing with a bass. Like if they're sitting there in a rock pile or log jam or under a dock or whatever else it may be, into a cypress tree, and they see this thing just boom, 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 swim past them super choppy. They're like, whoa, I need to come out and see what this is all about. Like it doesn't give them time to kind of catch their thoughts and think that is this a real fish? Is this something that I want to eat? They're just like, nope, this thing is pissing me off, or it's just ripping past me too fast. Like I have to go eat it. It's I don't know. It's interesting, and obviously people have their own derives of how this all this stuff works. But choppy glides, I feel like catch you a lot of fish, maybe not necessarily always the biggest fish, but you're gonna go out and you're gonna catch a crap ton of fish. And you're also not going to teach the fish. Like if you cast the same slow glide over the same point 25 times a day, those fish are going to realize that it's a fake bait or a fake fish. But
Right.
if you only have to cast it twice and you catch a fish off that point and you go to the next point, like you're limiting the I guess just the time that fish is able to see that bait and kind of pick up on what it is.
Right. No, yeah, I totally agree. And I agree even more with, that, head snappy, fast movement, especially when there's more than one.
Yeah, yeah. When
When
they're
there
like when there's
is
a
when there's
competition.
three fish on that rock pile
Yep.
and then you burn it over, that's when you get some of the most epic eats.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the videos you see of Marshall, slapping the top of the water and then blowing up on it again,
Yeah.
slapping it up on the water and blowing it again because he burns it away from him
Mhm.
to his paddleboard,
Yeah.
and that just triggers them, man. It makes them angry. So
Yeah. And
I agree with being able to move it faster. Just
yeah.
is going to create that schooling environment.
And for people, this is kind of a insight outside of the bass world. Like for anybody who's ice fished or anybody who hasn't ice fished, if you have a flasher like an old style Markham or Vexlar or whatever it may be, nothing too crazy. It's just a circle with the spinning arm and it lights up. If you see your bait, like this goes for crappie, walleye, and lake trout. Like if you see your bait and there's fish under it and it's like a school of crappie, if you start picking up that bait with your rod, like just ever start slowly picking it up, probably a couple inches. Like crappie, obviously, it's a lot less on the spectrum than like lake trout or walleye. If you slowly pick it up like 4 inches from where it is, those fish will literally follow that thing up, and you can see them rise up off the bottom or rise up out of 15 foot of water. Dude, there's sometimes you'll be fishing 20 feet of water in the crappie are in 15 foot. You can work that bait all the way up to 7 foot, and those crappie will follow it up the whole time. And then it just takes one of them to go up there and smash that thing. There might be five of them following it. Same thing with like walleye fishing. Walleye fishing over the ice, like you're sitting there and you have a fish. As soon as you have a fish, you start working that thing up because it's like it just gets in a trance of like, oh my gosh, I see this thing and I want to eat it. Lake trout are the same way, but lake trout are to the
Right.
point where you can do it on such a faster scale because they're so much bigger. You're fishing 80 foot of water and you're fishing in or you're jigging in like 50 foot of water. You can burn that thing up in a matter of 5 seconds, 10 foot, and that lake trout will just be spiraling around that thing, just losing its mind trying to eat it while you're lifting
Right.
it. Dude, it's so fun, and it's
Hmm.
crazy how you can kind of perceive that into the bass fishing world too, of fishing a bait super fast and like
Yep.
making them think, like hoaxing them into thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go eat this thing or else I'm gonna miss this meal that's so easy for me to get right now.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Pulling it away from them is a huge part of my game,
Yeah.
swim baiting for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, dude, it's just so much fun, especially to the point if you have electronics, like I was talking, obviously ice fishing electronics are a little bit different the way I was referring to them, but if you have live scope and you can tell, like if you're the little bit of live scope kind of time I've had was jerk bait fishing on St. Clair. You'll have four or five fish following that thing, and instead of reeling it once and popping it once, if you reel it three times and you give it like three pops, dude, those fish will just lunge at that thing, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need to go eat that
Right.
right now." It's such a cool learning
Yeah.
experience outside of kind of being whatever you think in the fishing industry. It's cool to watch it or even watch somebody else use it and like be like, "Oh my gosh, these fish are purely reacting on what kind of input I put into this bait, pretty much just like swim baits at
Yes.
that point."
Yeah, a lot of people refer to combat fishing
Yeah.
as, you show up to the steelhead spot and there's
Yep.
80 people next to you and they call
Yeah.
that combat fishing. Combat fishing for me is like Call of Duty, me versus the fish,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
on one.
Somebody's losing and
Every
somebody's
movement
winning.
that I make, yeah, somebody's losing and somebody's winning every time I'm one on one with a fish. And what you're talking about is, I mean, that's the pinnacle for fishing for me. Fly, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Sight fishing and watching them come and eat and watching your input be the thing that triggers the fish is just not even matched, even close by anything, in my opinion, as far as fishing goes.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Speaking of the fact of the fly fishing, combat fishing thing, I don't know if you know this, but I live up by like I don't know Manistee River, Tippy Dam, Pure Marquette, like the
Yep.
Betsy. Like I live up in the spot where fly fishing is like a thing that everybody does, and even to the point of steelhead and salmon fishing, dude. It gets wicked. It's an interesting hobby that a lot of
I
people
know it
come here to
does.
do. It's it's crazy. There was a
No,
kind of
it's
side. Yeah, side
wild.
note here. A couple years ago at one of the salmon rivers, there's actually a guy who they got into a fight down at the river and they walked up to their truck to go duke it out and the dude the dude sliced him like a pig. Guy ended up dying, just everything on the ground. He got
Oh my
sliced
gosh.
open. Guy went to prison. Dude, it is freaking crazy around here around that fall transition with all the salmon and steelhead pushing up in the rivers. Dude, it takes a different breed of a guy to go down there and put the dukes up and fight somebody for a spot like that.
One of the old heads that I fish with all the time calls them the East Coast grizzly bears.
Yeah, yeah, dude, that's that's a good way of
All the
putting
people,
it.
because they'll fight each other. They'll fight. They'll snag the fish. They don't care. They're just out there to get some food.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy how all that stuff works. But going back to like the fast choppy thing, we were talking about how the choppy has drawing power to an extent, I think. Like if the fish comes out and they chase it, because you got to think they're exerting a lot of energy to chase a bait down, especially like maybe if it's like the nugget, we'll use an example. Like if you rip that thing past the dock and that fish comes out, like I feel like it kind of clicks to a point where if you're fishing it too fast, that fish is like, yeah, I want to go get it, but it's a 3 inch fish. Like I'll wait for a 5 inch bluegill to swim past me super slow. And then even to the
Right.
point of like, could you fool them past the profile as far as like color, where if it's painted like a trout or a crappie or something, and if that even makes a difference to the fish too. Like there's so much stuff you can just deep dive into, and you might be able to share your experiences down there, and then I might be able to rebuttal and be like, dude, no, there's no way our fish would fall for that because I've had this happen. It's
Right.
crazy how it is just like on a personal level to the fish, not even to the body of water, just to what kind of fish you're targeting that day or what kind of fish you run across.
Yeah, I think to your point, there's definitely fishing way too fast. I
Mhm.
mean, I like you said, even if you're fishing that 8 inch bait and you're fishing fast, and it would be a substantial meal for them. Um, I refer to it, and I'm pretty sure it was Mike Gilbert that I heard say this, but don't quote me on that. But like it's just like driving the highway,
Mhm.
and what happens, you want to, if you were purposely trying to create road rage, you would go mess with somebody, they'd get behind you and start chasing you, and then what's the first thing you would do if you really wanted them to hit you? You would slam on the brakes.
Yeah, yeah.
So create the traffic jam. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? So we create road rage out of these fish, and we hop in front of them and they're chasing it.
Yeah.
And you got to stop that bait to create that traffic jam, and it becomes an immediate yes or no for them.
Mhm.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat it. Stop. Woo, I'm right here now. A lot of times they just come through it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
So I really like that change up, from fast, smooth,
Mhm.
fast, stop,
Yeah.
fast, smooth, fast, stop. You know what I'm saying? And I get a lot of bites up there, down here, by doing that, and I'm sure that's similar across the country.
Mhm.
But as far as color goes, I really like white,
Yeah.
and
Bone.
I think that I have had plenty of times where color does matter a little bit,
Mhm.
but most of the time that's in like a super rocky clear lake. Like when you're in 15 foot of water, it seems like you're in like 7 foot of water
Yeah.
when you're looking down into the water because it's that clear.
Mhm.
And those scenarios, I get a ton of follows on the bone, and I still get bit, but I tend to switch to a more natural color, but usually even still with a white belly on it. I just think that white, for whatever reason, is, I mean, a bass can look white when it turns on its
Yeah.
side and the sun hits it the right way,
Mhm.
when it's underneath the water.
Yeah.
So I think all bait fish, all predator fish, no matter what they're eating, at some point turned some way can look white with a glare off of them.
Mhm.
So I think it really covers the field. Like I said, I cover so much water usually with the same glide in my hand all day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be potentially in a couple different slight variations of water clarity. I'm also going to be fishing for bass that are eating brim and bass that are eating shad,
Mhm.
and you never know when you're going to cross their path. You know what I
Right.
mean? So overall, white is just a really good overall color for me, and I think it has the most drawing power across the board, no matter what the water clarity is. You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Clear, dirty, white is going to draw these fish in. And like we're talking about drawing power, I think a wide glide, has a lot of drawing power for
Mhm.
sure, but a white wide glide has even more drawing power,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm not even saying that converts to them eating it. I'm just
Right.
saying that brings them out of wherever they're hiding to come check it out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, people have to realize that there's a difference between drawing power and then them deciding to actually eat it. I mean, dude, the 250, if you go on Facebook or Underground and you type in 250, there's gonna be a gajillion posts on both forums of guys pissing and moaning on, oh my gosh, I have 25 fish following my 250 every cast, but I'm not having any eat. Like, what the hell am I doing? How can I get these followers to eat? And that's just like that's unfortunately just how it is. I think with the slow glides is you really gotta either bomb cast out there or long line them like how Jeffrey and Mike do with like the Hinkle trout.
Right,
Like you
right,
just have to bomb a cast out there and roll back an extra 80 feet so that fish kind of clicks that, oh, this bait's not starting to nose up, like this is either got to be really real or it's a real trout or whatever it may be. It just kind of gets them cracks out of the normal of what they're used to seeing presented from a swim
right.
bait, and they're like, okay, this is the real deal right here, type thing.
Hmm. Yeah, all those things out, and especially in California specifically, they are the kings of micro detail.
Yeah.
We luckily over here in North Carolina, like, you were talking about Alex. I mean, yesterday we went out, 54-degree water temps, 41 degrees, clear bluebird skies with sun out, and I mean we were getting smashed on the glide.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we get a ton of reps. You know what I mean? We get so many reps to where if there's that little micro adjustment, like, okay, it might have caught me my eighth fish of the day,
Mhm.
but it's not going to stop me from catching the other seven. Whereas like these guys are fishing those scenarios for one fish,
Yeah.
like, or a couple fish, and they're not going to get bit if they don't do those things, like downsizing the hooks to size twos and the split rings and everything else. Um, is all stuff that they're pros at out there. But
Right.
yeah, I agree. The wide glide, you're limited, whereas that a choppy, or a tighter glide, a swimming action, even a three piece, is in those scenarios when there's 25 bass
Yeah.
chasing it. You need to make one of them decide, I'm going to eat that, and then I bet you on your next cast another one eats it
Yeah.
again, and then on your next cast, because you got to get them fired up
Yep.
somehow.
Yeah.
If all 25 of them are like, oh, we're going to follow, then they're just going to keep following until
Mhm.
one says, I'm going to eat, and then they're all going to go, wait, hell nah, I'm eating
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so you get that frenzy started. But again, like, I can't say I've ever, long lined a depth 250 and went back 80 feet
Mhm.
either. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's just all about trying new stuff, and that's kind of like you being down south especially, or I guess I consider it down south, some guys may consider it out east, whatever. You being further down than I am, kind of having a little bit different like weather patterns, and obviously kind of having more of a quote like cult following in the bass scene. Like I'm sure tournaments out on Lake Norman are a almost tri-weekly thing. Like there's probably a couple that get ran every week. And obviously you
mhm.
guys probably have more fisheries out there that I'm not naming, but you guys have a bass fishing scene that's kind of tournament rich, I'm sure. And what has like that done for you guys? Have you, as far as like bait builders, have you seen an uptick in tournament guys like trying to buy the Nugget or the Ace, or like asking about the York, like trying to get into the swim bait scene to set themselves apart from what these fish on these like massive fisheries see every day from a jerkbait or a square bill or a rattle trap or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. The nugget is a big play, especially because these fish like to suspend
Mhm.
over like 20 foot of water, but they're only like 5 feet down.
Yeah.
And so they're chasing threadfin, and the nugget has that profile that you can kind of just hang it there. And it almost, if they're schooling, it'll get eaten without even moving it. You
Hmm.
just let it sit there and slow suspend, slow sink, and it'll get ate. So it became a big play for that scenario specifically. However, over the past probably 3 years on Norman in general, I don't think that people are actually really throwing it in tournaments that much, but I think that most every tournament angler has one.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they wouldn't, in my opinion, be considered swim baiters. Like, I don't think they throw glides and swim baits a bunch, but there's enough evidence and enough conversation going around that they've pulled the trigger. Do you
Hmm.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, in the article that I wrote for Scales and Tails in the spring, I mean, that was about tournament fishing on a
Yeah.
glide, and
Hmm.
we won a couple grand doing that,
Yeah.
while everyone else was bed fishing. Like, we were still fishing the pre-spawn bite or
Hmm.
post-spawn, whichever one the fish
Yeah.
were on the main channel.
Right.
But and everybody else was fishing spawning fish. And so, yeah, I definitely think that it gives you a giant advantage. And I think that the other thing it does is gives you a huge advantage in practice.
Mm.
Um, you know, you can find where the big fish live on a glide and not even catch them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Burn it out of their face and get out of there. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Like, don't even catch the fish. Don't let them eat it. Like, just let them come out hot. And if they were super hot, I'd obviously throw the glide in there in the tournament. But if not,
Right.
throw a jig. I mean, pick around until you find those fish and catch
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean? So yeah, in the tournament game, especially, as they start to exclude live scope from tournaments and stuff like that. I
Hmm.
mean, swim baits were my first live scope.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understood where these fish were living and why they were living where they were living and the areas that they were in really quickly just by throwing a glide bait because they show you where they're at. Um, and so I think it's a great finding fish technique, just as good as it is a fish catching technique.
Right. Yeah. And I guess is does Lake Norman have excuse me, does Lake Norman have like tackle shops that sell glide baits and stuff, or is it like exclusively kind of guys just talking at the dock, like, hey, oh, look at this bait I have. Oh, I'm gonna get one of those. How do I get one type thing? Or kind of what's the I guess market like down there essentially is the way to put it.
Yeah, there's definitely shops around here that have glide baits in them, especially about to be because we have some of ours about to go into some of these shops around here. But for the most part, I think it's pretty localized.
Mm,
Like, and you could see some Buca's stuff in there, nachos, burritos, things like that.
yeah.
Obviously, the ABS trick shad and the Chad shad and all of that, the Spro Chad shad, you find those easy. But I've seen a lot of tater hog stuff in our shops, but he lives here in Sauls. He lives right down the road, so I'm pretty sure he has a relationship with those guys. So more to the point of your question, I don't think there is such a huge I'm going to my local tackle shop to buy a glide bait market here as there is in other places in the country. So I think a lot of it is just ramp talk. Social media does a huge thing,
Yeah.
I mean, we've sold a lot of glides just because I caught fish on glides and people thought it looked fun and they fished the same areas as me, so they want to try it. You know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest is social media these days. You watch 10 spotted bass come out and destroy a glide bait on the lake that you fish, and you're like, oh, well, I kind of want to try that. That would be pretty
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah. Yep. Do you think that that maybe you guys, because so say that Buka has baits in shops, say that Kevin from KGB or Spro, whoever it may be, has baits in shops. That is more of a niche thing, like where you have to follow those guys to see it. They live in other states. There may not be as well known to the locals who aren't, if they're older guys or whatever else it may be, not too experienced or not too deep into the internet stuff. Whereas, like, if there's local guys out there that aren't into that swim bait scene, so they don't follow those guys, but they follow you, like, do you think that you guys can really grow the swim bait market locally as far as like getting guys exposed to the glide baits? They're like, oh my gosh, Caleb and his guys like smash. I saw Alex or him post a video catching two spotted bass at once on the ace or something like that. I'm gonna go out and do it, and then that leads to the ramp talk. Like, do you guys think that you selling baits locally and kind of having a local following will lead to the bait shops like essentially being more interested in carrying more swim baits because guys are getting into it a little bit more?
Yeah, and I think they already are. I think that the bait shop being a small business
Hmm.
and then swim bait companies being a small business creates a tiny bit of wedge there
Yeah.
only because the amount of product that a small bait maker can make
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily fit the quota of the small business lure. I mean, the
Yeah.
small bait company.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Especially
Like
with
the
like
shop.
prices and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you have 100 baits, right? And there's 10 shops that want them.
Hmm.
Well, now you give them the 10 baits and you wait for your pay. Like they're not going to give you $800 for your baits.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're sitting on dead inventory if they're not pushing your baits. So
Hmm.
ideally for me, I'm not going to put my baits in a shop unless I have a personal relationship with the person of some sort.
Yep.
Because I want him to be able to talk personally about my baits. If they're in a shop and no one's talking about them and no one knows what they are, Well, then that's just dead stock for us.
Yeah.
Like we basically just wasted our time and money for them for years and years and years to just sit in your shop. You've seen, custom lures in shops that have dust on them in the
Banjo
case and
minnows at
stuff. Like
shops
they've
and
been
stuff.
there. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so like that's my point is we're not gonna get into that at all. And I can't speak for other people. I guess I kind of did, but
Right.
the problem I've had with it is, we can't create 10,000 of these. We're not throwback yet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we can't just supply, tackle warehouse with 2,000 baits and
Mhm.
them go as they may. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like so I think that's the hardest part. And I again, I don't want to speak for other swim bait makers, but I think that's probably the reason why you don't see it more just at every shop.
Yeah.
Because obviously the exposure is great, but if you don't have anyone who's actually, putting their name or their handprint on the bait in person when a customer walks in, then they're not going to pull out $100.
Hmm.
They're just not. They're gonna buy that jerk bait they came in for and head out. Um, so I think that because there's two small companies, limited in the time that they have and the money they have, that creates issues where all of a sudden, like what KGB did, you deal with Spro. Now
Hmm.
all of a sudden, problem solved.
Yeah.
You can put baits anywhere you want, which obviously, I don't know if we'll ever do ABS stuff, but obviously everybody business wise wants to get to the point to where they can work like he does.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes down to the point of like cheap and expensive baits too. Like, is it worthwhile for your local tackle shop to buy 150 nuggets if you guys can, these are just numbers, if they can buy them for $35 a piece and turn them and sell them for $100 a piece or whatever, whatever it comes out to. Whereas, dude, they can turn around and they can buy 100, pick rattle traps or whatever, Bill Lewis rattle traps. They can buy 150 units of Bill Lewis rattle traps at $1.25 a piece and turn around and sell them for 9.50, $10, we'll say $10. They can make $9 off 150 units probably in the course of, we'll say, 2 weeks if there's a hot rat or rattle trap bite going on that they're
Right.
capitalizing on. Whereas they buy 50 nuggets at $35 a piece and can make $30 on them. But dude, they might have to sit on them for 4 months. Like,
Right.
like how
And
you
that's
guys,
that's the opposite
yeah,
side of
yeah,
it, right?
how
Is
you
they
guys
want
have
me to
dead
come in
stock.
and push
Yep.
them sales.
Yeah.
So, but like at that point is like, so you're basically making them the profit when you could just push sales to your website and make all the profit yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it just gets confusing. Like obviously I'd love to collab with everybody in the world.
Hmm.
I'd love for our baits to be in everybody's hands,
Yeah.
but at not at a certain cost is what I'm not willing to do it at.
Hmm.
Like I'm not willing to lose money and efficiency and change our process for us to just have to push people to the tackle shop for them to sell them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'd rather just push them to our website at that point.
Yeah. And that comes down to the point of, dude, making a rattle bait that is ABS plastic based out of an overseas shop costs,
100%.
it costs
Yep.
Bill Lewis or whoever makes them, cost them maybe like 4 cents a bait, something
Right.
crazy outlandish that realistically you guys could never meet, or any
Not
swim
even
bait
close. Yeah.
builder could meet right now to this point of everybody in the market right now. Whereas for you guys to sell that bait for $35 to the bait shop, it may cost you guys $27 in product, in time and material, and paying the guy who's pouring them plus hardware. You guys are only making $5 off it, where if they make them for 10 cents and they sell them for $1.50, they're making $1.40 off it. Like, it just comes to a point
Right.
where custom production, or like custom swim baits, custom production swim baits, whatever you want to call it, a resin bait, it is only there's only so many times that you can squeeze it out to make it so everybody in the process makes money. And that's why every once in a while builders get into Shields or some smaller retail store tackle shops like we were talking about. But to the point of, it's not cheap to build, it's not cheap to buy in the first place firsthand from the bait builder, from the bait shop. And there's really the more and more you sell it to the bait shops, the less and less room you have to make more, and especially the less room that they have too. Like it just never really works out like that. And that's why custom production baits are so expensive because it takes so much time to get them to the point of being able to create it to sell it. Like there's so much that goes into it that
Yeah.
the people who don't know just have no idea.
Yeah, someone actually yesterday told me they were talking to somebody that I know, and that they were like, "Yeah, that guy's crazy. He's finessing people by selling that nugget. He definitely makes that thing for like 15 cents."
Well,
Right? Someone said that,
yeah.
and obviously I am past. Like I just laugh and I'm like, "That's hilarious, dude."
Hmm.
Like I don't even get bent out of shape about it. But what's crazy is like I'm in debt on the Nugget still right now.
Hmm.
We've sold 780 units. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the and 780 units on our website, which we sold over 100 before we ever even had a website to put
Mhm.
them up on. So my point is I'm still in debt right now. So people can do the math for themselves. It's not cheap, and the reason why they cost so much is because of the proprietary knowledge that went into them.
Yeah.
No one just went out and typed in on Amazon resin
Hmm.
and then typed in silicone and then bought those things and it worked.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it goes.
Hmm.
You screw up 1,000 times over, you ruin every mold that you ever make, you ruin your carvings, you ruin, your lead pots go out, paints, micro balloons, all the hooks and split rings, the eyes. I mean, you name it. Plus, in our scenario, Trevor and Mike, every single nugget that we make, they make money off of that too
Yeah.
because Mike's the main one in production. We all pour baits, by the
Hmm.
way. Like we all are hands on with the entire bait making process. But Mike pours majority of the nuggets. And I weigh majority of the nuggets, and Trevor paints majority of the nuggets. So there's like this congruency of three people trying to get the job done, plus products that are already expensive as could
Yeah.
be, on top of how much product we ruined just getting the product that we were trying to get.
Hmm.
You drill a hole in a bait and you didn't drill it right, well, that bait's cooked.
Yeah.
There's no like trying to fix a crooked hole. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? In a bait. I mean, you can, but as soon as you catch a fish, that hole is going to pop open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, and so the proprietary knowledge of like I said, we're 6 months in on this bait right here,
Hmm.
and I have a box, like a Christmas storage box that you would put all your Christmas
Yeah.
ornaments and lights in, full of prototypes York glides that are just trash.
Hmm.
Every single one of them, and there's probably 300 in that box that are just trash. And every time someone comes over to the shop, they're like, "Can I have one of those?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, you can, but I don't really want you to because you're just going to call me and be like, it sucks.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's technically those are $100 baits just sitting in there and they're cooked,
Hmm.
every 300 of them. So that's why it's so expensive, because there's no way that, everyone can pay their bills and restock on materials and pay people to help them and ship and get promotion. And,
Yeah.
we film a ton. I mean, it's just insane. It's our whole life. It's what we do 120 hours a week,
Hmm.
and we're not selling nuggets even close to the amount to even make profit right now. I mean, if we steadily sell nuggets the way we are, we will be in profit for sure. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
say that we lose money on the nugget. Just
Hmm.
the beginning of the entire process, there's so much startup cost.
Yeah.
In order to get the nugget produced, you have to have everything to produce the nugget, and when you don't have that, then that's a couple grand just to get the systems in place to be able to produce it in a high number.
Hmm. Yeah, dude, it's absolutely crazy how much money guys literally pour down the drain to figure out the resin recipe, to figure out how to pour silicone molds, whatever it may be. It's crazy to hear all the stories on the builders who spend just an absolutely absurd amount, in the thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to get the bait just perfect to where, okay, now I can start selling it. Oh my gosh, I have to buy
Right.
buy boxes and shipping boxes, and I have to buy a label printer, and
Mhm.
I have to set up an online site and all this stuff. Like, dude, it just piles on until when you finally got it figured out. Okay, now we can start chipping away at these credit cards that I owe X amount of dollars on. Like, holy
Yeah,
shit. Now
100%.
I'm only making 25% on a bait because the other 75% is going towards paying off the card or paying my people or whatever else it may
Yeah.
be, dude.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's like a picture of that guy pushing the stone up the mountain. Like, well, that's when you think you're getting up to the top. Oh, we're gonna start making another bait. Oh my gosh, the stone just rolled down to the bottom. We have to go through all this shit again a
Yeah, yeah.
second time. Like, it's crazy to think about. And guys don't really think about it or see that side of it ever unless they're on a podcast or they make a post or whatever it may be. And then I feel like it opens guys' eyes up a little bit. And they're like, okay, that's why I'm paying $125 for this 8-inch glide bait because he's put 17 grand into it. Okay, I know what he's trying to do now. This makes a lot more sense to me on why I'm paying for this.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was about to make a joke. You said it, but you almost get that rock to the top of the hill, and you're like, all right, finally, like you said, 10 grand in debt.
Yeah,
Finally, I get to start making some money. You put it up from sale. The first message you get is $125. Are you
yeah,
kidding me?
yeah. Like,
And
oh,
you're
this is
like,
gonna
oh
take a
my
while.
gosh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, dude. It
So yeah, that really is how it goes. Every single bait maker in the world, every single one, and again, I have not shook their hands or spoke to them. I don't know them all. Has put their family through some risk
yeah.
in some tough times financially, time wise. I mean, when you have deadlines, when you told people, "Hey, we're going to have it done by this time, and then we're going to have them up tonight," and the night before you have 30 messages saying 7 p.m. tomorrow, 7 p.m. tomorrow, and you're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, we're not even close."
Yeah.
Right now, all of a sudden, you're working till 3 a.m. and everything else, and time sacrifice, money sacrifice scares the shit out of my wife.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you this, as of recently, since we finally started to create some momentum and
Yeah.
get things settled out and see the bright side of the future, she's finally seeing the light and loves it, obviously, and thinks it's amazing and cool and wants us to be happy. But I mean, we've put my wife, through some shit.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And because a lot of people say things that they don't actually mean, like, "Hey, yeah, I'll buy that," or "I'm gonna book these guy trips and then cancel."
Yep.
Like for instance, in December, I had one dude book 4 days the second week in December, and he canceled every single one.
Hmm.
Like that's a big hit at five
Yeah.
fifty a day. Like when I'm expecting to have $2,100 come in plus tips,
Yeah.
and now I don't.
Yep.
Like in a snap of a finger, our life is so volatile to everyone else. Like it just doesn't really matter. If I tell you I'm going to buy these baits and then we custom paint them for you like we have in the past, and you don't buy them, well, now we have two stupid colored perch paints with blue cheeks because you wanted it, and now all of a sudden you don't want it anymore. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So like then there's that whole aspect as well,
Yeah.
that like it's not even self-inflicted. It's literally just people not following through as well. So there's not a bait maker who hasn't struggled, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. And that even goes to the point of like, you make a post or somebody makes a post and they're like, hey, do you guys like this color? And they've got 400 people that vote yes. Oh my gosh, that's the best color I've
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
seen.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then they turn around and they make 200 in that bait color and 7 people buy the baits. And you're like, dude, what the heck? Like if you don't hold any standard of like the guide, like a lot of guides now do the deposit thing where it's like $100 non-refundable deposit, $400 after the trip or whatever it may be like that. Where if you don't have something to hold people accountable and you're just going off their word, oh dude, you just got screwed. You just got rinsed by
Yeah,
somebody.
right. Well, and that's what we do. I mean, obviously for guiding, we do have deposits and such, but again, 400 versus 2100 is completely different.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I just don't know how you do that for glide bait. Like the glide bait industry for me and the way that we want to run business is like I don't call anyone who buys our baits like our client or like even customers weird. Like they're my friends.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I love the friend business relationship with people who are purchasing from you, because that's the thing they love about you. That's the thing that makes them love the bake company, is feeling a part of a community, feeling
Yeah.
like they can reach out to you and you communicate with them, and all of that stuff. So the worst thing, in my opinion, that I could do, even though it help us a lot, is be like, I don't believe you. Give me $50 and I'll start making your bait. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's such a small percentage of people that actually do that. It just seems like it always happens at the times you're in the most need. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So
100%, dude. That's just how it works, unfortunately, for whatever reason. That's how the universe seems to pile it on a lot of guys in our
they like
industry.
to
It
kick you
seems
when you're
that
down.
yeah. Yeah, 100%, dude. It just how it is, I guess, and for whatever reason, it seems like you said, it just they know when it's not your day or not your month or whatever it may be, and they're just like, oh, watch this, I'm gonna screw this guy.
Well, and everyone loves to think that because we film and we make baits and then, we put up 30 baits and they sell out, that day or whatever, they're like, "Damn, these guys are killing it." And it's a lot to like, and I don't want to compare myself to this, but it's a lot like to an artist who is first on the scene in music, right? Like everyone thinks that they're a millionaire already because they had a song last month hit number, like they're
Right.
gonna be a millionaire, but
Yeah.
at that point they're so confused, they don't know what's going on. Everyone is trying to get a piece of what they have going on,
Mhm.
and so it makes for a tough judgment situation. I've never owned anything that this many people wanted.
Mhm.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
juggling expectations and stuff like that is hard, and like you have to learn, like specifically I've had to learn to get more blunt, like you were saying,
Mhm.
about guide trips and stuff like that. Like, all right, well, you're gonna send me $100 right now, or it's not gonna get on
Yeah.
the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, Whereas at first you're just happy that you have a guide trip.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. It's hard trying to navigate a scenario that you plan for, but you don't have any experience with. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
produce 100 baits and you're like, oh my gosh, like I know I can pour 100 baits, but like how can I go about selling 100 baits? How am I gonna get them all to the post office? Like it's that thing where, dude, even if you do it after a couple times, it's still like kind of a foreign thing. And you know how to do it, you know that it's gonna all work out, but it's like, dude, like at any point in time you could get a bad batch of resin and you're like, holy shit, I haven't had to deal with this yet. Like what the hell am I gonna do now?
Dude,
Like I need to
we just dealt with that.
yeah.
We just dealt with one of our molds shrinking slightly, so we poured 50 nuggets, and as soon as we had it next to some of the other ones we had made, it's
Mhm.
skinnier by like a quarter of an inch,
Yeah.
and we swam them, and they swim like shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Especially,
bruh,
yeah.
no.
Especially when you're doing something like that has so many variables like bait building where, dude, like I just said, so much stuff can just slightly like the humidity can be slightly different to where it doesn't cure right or the microballoons all sink to the bottom of the bait or they don't get mixed enough or just so much stuff. The paint comes off or whatever it may be and you just have to being a business owner is just all about kind of navigating the losses and how can we reduce it or how can we eliminate it so the next time we don't have to worry about this variable. And unfortunately, there's just so much that goes into like being a custom lure maker that it's just like seems like it's a never-ending list of shit that can go wrong and how do we avoid it and how can we overcome it. But that list is just always growing and you have to go back and look at how you did it before.
Yeah, I have no idea how some of these dudes are a one-man crew,
Right.
like just emotionally.
Hmm.
Like there's days where, like I said, you pour 50 nuggets and they all suck. Like how am I supposed to like start right now pouring more nuggets after that emotional devastation
Yeah.
and get right back into it as if nothing
And
happened,
not be gun
as if we
shy.
didn't just lose a bunch of money. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so like having Mike and Trevor and Alex to be able to be like, all right, dude, I'm fed up with this right now.
Hmm.
I've been trying to, work on this lead pot that's not working and
Yeah.
I cannot figure it out, blah blah blah, and then hand it over to them and take
Hmm.
over whatever they're doing or
Yeah.
move to doing some editing while they do that is been giant for me in being able to stay positive and keep the ball rolling every day, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Because if it was by myself, you know, I'm Mr. Like I said about the carving when I mess
Mhm.
up, I'm Mr. Like, all right, I'm done with that for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like on to something new.
Right. Yeah, dude, it
So
takes a whole bunch of people to get something to work efficiently, even if it's not efficient. Like if it's like something like that has a bunch of variables and you run into it, it's nice to be able to not necessarily offload, but be like, okay, dude, you got to do this. I'll sand for a little while. You need to start pouring lead into these baits because I'm about to lose it today. And
yeah,
it's nice
yeah,
having where you
literally.
can, yeah, it's nice where you can just
Hmm.
hand the baton off to somebody else and kind of just not freak out and shut down for the day type thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And obviously, that's a little bit to do with my personality. Most of these guys are very much more drawn back, less high energy than I
Mhm.
am too. I'm super ADD and
Right.
I have a million things on my brain at the same time. So the fact that this is messing up right now is really throwing a wrench in my day because I still have three other things to do and I don't have time to redo this.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. Alrighty,
So.
man. Let's talk about the setups that you guys use for the Nugget, Ace, and the York, and we'll kind of break that down. And then if we have anything else to talk about, we'll obviously cover that. But like, we'll start off with what is your go-to setup for the Nugget? Since we talked about the Nugget a lot this episode, kind of what's like you're going out on the boat tomorrow to catch a bunch of spots or a bunch of big spots. What is the setup that you're kind of entrusting to cast the Nugget with?
So where I'm casting my nugget most of the time is gonna be in an area that is either tight to cover to where I know big spotted bass and largemouth live, or on busting fish. And so because of that, I like a little bit stiffer rod because it allows me to cast a little bit more accurate in tight places. So I use a 7 foot one medium heavy St. Croix Mojo bass,
Okay.
and it's got a nice soft tip to it. It's not like a true jig flipping rod, but
Mhm.
you could throw a finesse jig on it as
Yeah.
well. But that's about as heavy as I would go. I've thrown it on jerk baits and topwater rods, and it does fantastic. You can cast a little bit further on a little bit more limber rod.
Hmm.
So if you were just like specifically fishing for busting fish, you know, it might be better to have a little bit um, softer tip in the
Yeah.
rod. But for me, I like to be able to pull them out
Hmm.
of structure and stuff like that because a lot of these big spots, for instance, come vertical off a brush pile or off a dock,
Hmm.
and they just inhale it and turn right back down into the structure. So having a rod tip that I can actually set
Hmm.
pretty good to get their head up
Yeah.
is something that makes me confident. And then when you're catching a ton of fish, yeah, I can flip them in the boat,
Right. Yeah.
which that's another thing, you know, like you can catch a ton of fish really fast.
Hmm.
So I like a high gear ratio reel, 8:3 to 1. I'm Mr. High speed gear ratio anyways. Like I just prefer high speed gear ratios. Like even a crankbait, I'm throwing on a 7-to-1, you know,
Yeah.
because I'd rather have to slow down than have to really speed up,
Right.
you know.
100%. Yeah.
So um 8:3 to 1 gear ratio. 100 size reel is totally fine. 150, but I've seen a lot of guys throw it on 200 as well, especially when they're only bringing like one rod for the
Hmm.
day or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people throw it on really light rods. Seen them throw it on spinning rods. I've seen them throw it on braid, but I prefer 12 to 15 pound fluoro. And yeah, that's my nugget setup. 7-1 medium heavy Mojo bass with a 100 size 8:3 to 1 with 12-pound fluoro, and then I tie a loop knot on mine. And I think that the loop knot, specifically for the smaller bait,
Yeah.
is a big
100%.
deal because you know, add it. You can add a split ring or a snap,
Hmm.
and the nugget it's a power horse in the water. It really is. So I mean, it moves water really well for its size. But still, I prefer to just add nothing to it,
Right.
and fish it how it's intended to be fished with a loop knot. So.
Heck yeah, dude. What when you guys sell the nuggets, do they come with hooks and split rings on them, and kind of what sizes are you running in case guys need to
Yeah.
replace them or anything?
Yeah, so it's small. So you can actually upsize. But we go size one decoy split rings, and we use KVD size 8 EWGs
Okay.
for the hooks.
Right.
And again, you can go up to a size 2 and a size 6 and switch to ST36 round bends or whatever you want. And it
Mhm.
does really well um, with adjustments in the split rings and the hooks. But that's just been the standard for us. And it's worked well for us. So
Sweet. And
the
then,
only issues we've ever run into is big striper in the net. If one of the hooks is off,
mm,
not in his mouth and one's in, and it catches the net and he starts gator
yeah.
rolling, it'll straighten out those split rings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What so for the York and the Ace, what are the specs on those, and can a guy get away with fishing both on the same rod?
100% can fish them both on the same rod. The York Glide comes in around 2 ounces. The Ace is more in that 2.5, and obviously it's variable based on the season that we make them in,
Right.
because we don't want them to just float, so they can change in weight slightly. But around 2 and 2.5. The Ace is 2.5. York is 2. They're both 7 inches long. Matter of fact, I'll just show them while I'm
Yeah.
talking
If
about
you
it.
guys are watching,
But
you're
they're
you're
both
seeing the
seven
baits
inches.
now.
There's This one is obviously gizzard. This one's more herring.
Yeah.
But they're about the same length. This one's heavier. You can see the thickness of them.
Hmm.
This one is just slightly thicker, and that's where the weight addition is coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially same exact rod. And I throw a 796. We actually build our own rods, and hopefully we'll be able to offer some of that in 2025 for people who are interested in it. And Andrew Swaim, actually, our buddy,
Yeah.
he's gonna build some for us. So
Heck yeah, dude.
that'll be cool, and he'll help us with that production. So
Sick, dude.
796, which is just basically a 1 to 4 soft tip treble hook glide rod, or it's just swim bait rod in
Yep.
general. And then I'm bougie. I have a Conquest now, MD 301. So I've noticed that even other 300 size reels don't have the same retrieval.
Hmm.
So if you don't have the Conquest, definitely just 200 size reel is fine. You don't have
Right.
to have a 300 size reel. Again, I have a Conquest, so I just throw it to make it feel like it was worth purchasing.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I've thrown them on 200 size Corrados, and it's awesome. High speed gear ratio, 7 plus. And then I use 20-pound fluoro with a loop knot again. Now, I do know that people have issues with the loop knot on bigger baits. Like people say they break or whatever. So you can definitely put a split ring or a snap on there, no
Yeah.
problem as well. And it's not going to affect the swim of those baits near as much. I used to fish a snap all the time, but Andrew, Mr. Hook Set from
Yeah.
stinking
Yeah.
the Under Earth, he scared me from fishing snaps now just because he sets the almighty heaven on giant fish, and he's
Yeah.
had some bend out on him, and I'm like, all right, I just don't want to hear it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Don't want to hear the "I told you so."
Yeah, exactly.
Um, what
So yeah,
size?
that's those three baits.
Yeah. What are the hooks,
Hooks.
hooks and split rings for the Ace and the York?
So on these ones, I'm running Spro number threes and fours. I've ran both. And then I'm running ST36s for the hooks size 2.
Okay. Sweet. I was gonna ask you anything. I can't remember. I was gonna ask you something about the baits. Crap, I can't remember. Do you there's one. Can people pull the pins and mess with the joints at all, or is all that stuff molded into the
Yes.
bait?
Absolutely. And that's just something that I like to talk about because this is something I've really experimented with a ton. This is actually an ace right here. And obviously I just pulled the pin out for anyone watching. I'm demonstrating, but you just pull the pin out and obviously you got your two joint screws, and these will loosen and tighten
Okay.
to give you, a tighter drive or
Yep.
a wider glide, whichever one you want. And then right here is going to be a tuning chamber. And pretty much on every bait, if you're going to add actual lead
Hmm.
to the bait, I'm not talking about wire to the hooks, but like actual lead, I would mess with this chamber right here. And you
Yeah.
can take a drill and drill lead out
Hmm.
and also add weight right there. For people trying to get it down to deeper depths. Manny just did a post about fishing it at 7 or 8 feet. He's added a little bit of weight to
Yeah.
his and lets it sink down
Hmm.
and fishes those grass lines like, a foot up from the grass line and 8 foot of water. So yeah, there's tons of adjustments. You can even do that with the nugget as well. Add weight, take away weight. Same with the York Glide. All of them are going to have the removable pin and the tuning. We call this a tuning chamber
Hmm.
because this is how we tune our baits.
Yeah.
Some people have the middle tuning chamber too. We're not there yet.
I will say if you guys are going to take a drill to any bait that has a tuning chamber in it, that's what Caleb was talking about earlier. If you drill the hole not straight, you're screwed. You can't really fix that. So if you're going to do it and it's a 7/32 hole, go with a smaller drill bit to make sure you drill through the lead
I was
that's in a
about to
straight
say that.
hole and then slowly work
Yeah.
your way up. Don't take the same exact size bit and just start because you're gonna blow that bait out. And once you blow that bait out, your SOL, there's no refunds on baits that you just put a drill bit through. And I don't even know if maybe
Yeah.
they would, but
Sorry.
I'm just saying that's just not how it works. If I was owning a bait company,
Hey, I just sawed my bait in half. Can I have another one?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Do you guys recommend like putting like a dab of super glue on the bottom of the pin once they put it back in or anything, or you guys not had any problems? I know every once in a while somebody will
I
post, "Oh, I lost half my bait because I didn't put the pin in all the way." Do you guys make the pin so it pushes all the way through, or is it like bottom out and you can't really push it through or anything?
Yeah, so we put ours right on the top. So
Okay,
we do put super glue on ours
okay,
because a lot of people bend them,
yeah,
but I've seen issues with having it bent and then it blows out the bottom when you smash it on something
yeah,
because this is already pushing into it.
hmm,
And so it creates too much pressure, too much in a pressure point.
yeah,
So right on the top where the nail head is, I put the bait here, I'll just show you really quick. But I put the bait almost together all the way
okay,
like this.
yep,
And then I'll put a tad bit of super glue right there
okay,
and then just push it all the way down and
okay,
and you'll be good in that sense. It shouldn't be sliding in and out very easily,
right.
but again, that can happen, and so we recommend putting a little bit of super glue on there because you don't want to lose half your bait.
Yeah, especially if you guys are pulling it in and out to loosen those screw points. And also, if you are not familiar, if you pull a screw out of a wall too many times or out of a piece of wood, you are going to wall that thing out and that thing might have a failure point. So if you're getting all hunky dory and you're ripping these baits apart and really loosening them and tightening them 40 times in a day, maybe you just need to buy two new baits and have one for choppy baits and one for wide baits because after a point, resin does hit or anything with a screw lock does hit a certain point where it just does not have the same strength as it once did before. So keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
no,
I don't think
definitely.
I've ever heard anybody say that. Maybe some builders put it in a post, but I will say if you guys are into tinkering baits, be slightly careful if you're doing that because it does not take much for that screw eye to just say, "Yeah, yeah, I'm not going to be stuck in here anymore."
Yeah, luckily if you get the back of your bait back, then
Yeah,
obviously that is a super easy fix.
right.
But specifically on the York Glide, we have weight in the tail,
Okay.
and so that back piece is probably just gonna slowly disappear down into the abyss. So,
Right.
but they come super glued with us, so
Okay.
we already have them super glued when you get
Sweet.
them, and so you have to kind of crack the super glue to
Yeah.
get the pin out, which
Sweet.
is totally fine and how we intend it.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm glad I asked you about that so you can kind of add a little bit onto there. Trying to think, was there anything else that we didn't touch on about the baits that you wanted to talk about?
No, not really. Um, I feel like we've really hit the nail on the head, no pun intended, since we're talking about
Just talking
nails.
about the nails. Heck yeah, dude. I'm trying to think of anything else, just a last minute thing. We talked about the gear, went pretty in depth on the gear. talked about the baits. I guess if you just want to tease anything, are you guys working on any like wake baits or anything that we could look forward to in 2025 or anything like that?
Okay, so we got the tomahawk coming out, which the
Okay.
tomahawk is going to be your true magnum swim bait. It's going to be pushing 6, 7 ounces when it's all said and done.
Mhm.
And right now it's over 7 ounces, but we're slimming it down slightly.
Heck yeah.
But it's going to be that true, you're going to stick that in your hand and you're looking for one giant like the Hinkles,
Hmm.
and in no way people will crucify me. In no way was I comparing it to the Hinkle
Yeah,
at
yeah.
all. But I'm just saying that thickness and that much presence in the
Mhm.
water, it's really gonna be a big bait. And I'll be sneak peeking it here in this month a little
Sweet.
bit as I'm working on it. And then we have a softie coming out that is super under wraps, hush hush,
Okay.
that we've already started catching some fish on, and that's going to be coming out 6 inches first.
Sweet.
But it's a true gizzard profile. I'll give you that.
Heck yeah, dude.
And yeah, then the other thing is a nugget crawler.
Ooh, that'll be sick. That'll
So
be a
just
really
kind of
cool
like
bait.
baby that little kind of Pompadour
Mhm.
Junior esque size popper. I mean,
Yeah.
Pompadour Junior popper. No,
Yeah.
crawler. You get
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Heck yeah, dude. That'll be sick. That's a really cool bait profile that I don't outside of like the Pompadour. Dude, that's really like the NZ or no, is it the Depths Pompadour NZ crawler or whatever the hell it is? That's one bait, right?
Yeah, that's the depth. Pompadour is Jackal.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know which one you're talking about now. So yeah, I mean, really outside of those two, or maybe there's a couple JDM ones that I can't think of, but there's not really many smaller crawlers. So that would be really cool. That would be super cool when you guys start to preview that a little bit. Outside of that, dude, if people want to check out the site, if when they're listening to this, if you guys have some nuggets on the site, where can they type that into Google to find you guys?
Yeah, just yorkcasting.com. So YORK and then casting like a rod, CASTING. And there's some up right now. I don't know if there's going to be some up when the podcast actually comes out, but I'd also like to give you one of these nuggets so that you can give away whether
Yeah,
however you want to do it,
sick.
to people who listen to the podcast or whatever.
Right.
I'm going to send you a couple of these, and so you can send maybe have 2 or 3 winners.
Yeah. Let's do you want to give one away now and then like I can do a winner later down the road if you want? Let's
Yeah, let's do it.
what's pick a random word that they can leave in the comments and then we'll kind of pick them from the comments when this on the show art. So when this goes up Monday in the show art with the pictures of Caleb and whatever else that little writing goes up on my page and I'll do the collaboration post so your followers can see it as well. Let's think of a word that they have to type so we know that they made it this far. Just some random off the wall word that people are going to read in the comments be like, "What the hell are these people saying? What do we got? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?"
First thing that comes to my mind, crawler.
Crawler, dude, let's do it. Crawler it is. So if you guys made it this far, what are we like an hour and 25 minutes into it or something? If you guys made it this far and you want to get drawn to do the to win a nugget, make sure you guys type in crawler on that little show art episode. This thing will go up on Monday. So what if we leave it up for up until that Monday, up until that Friday, the following Friday? So you guys have 5 days to listen to this episode, make it this far. And if you guys are interested, obviously go comment crawler and either Caleb or I'll do a Instagram live or something, and we'll just or we'll just screen record a comment section picker off of Google, and whoever was that lucky person that made it this far and listened to the crawler and type that in, they'll get themselves a new nugget for 2025. I'm pretty sure this is the first episode I've recorded in 2025. So happy New Year to you guys! And what better way to start off the new year than winning a free bait, man? Nothing better than that, I don't think.
No, definitely not. I also have another little surprise if we have time for
Yeah,
it.
dude. Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
have so right here in this box is the oldest glide bait of all time.
Yes. Okay.
Literally
Yeah.
the oldest glide bait of all time. The first one ever produced ever. We actually got this shipped in from Japan. And
Whoa.
it was a stupid night. Me and my what's up?
From Japan, that's crazy.
Yeah, so this bait was built in 1912. Um, and a lot of people don't know that a hinged glide style bait ever even existed that long ago. I've literally never opened this box, so
Damn.
I
How
haven't
long
even seen this
how
thing.
long have you been
This
sitting
thing
on
may be a
this?
bunch of dust. About 8 months.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, well, so I was in the middle of moving right when I got it, and so
Uh-huh.
I lost the box for a little while.
Mm.
And so I found it, but then I was like, I can't just open it on my story or something.
Right, yeah.
I gotta save it for like a cool moment. So
Yeah,
this is a cool moment, and this thing might just be complete dust. I'm not
right.
sure. It might just be a toy figure from Japan, and I just got finessed.
Yeah, it
But
might just say I got you
let's
or on
see
the
here.
box or something crazy. So for you guys listening, Caleb's opening up the box, ripping open the bubble wrap that this thing came in. If you guys watching on YouTube, obviously you're seeing what's going on. But dude, this is crazy. 1912, almost 100 or 110 years, 113 years ago. Absolutely insane that they were bouncing
Oh, it's
glide baits
actually got
back
a
then.
really nice profile. Dude,
Dude, that is crazy.
it's like calcified.
Look at the hooks on that thing. Oh my gosh.
Dude, that is crazy.
Stinger
Yeah,
hooks
man.
on the back.
1912 got metal V-tail on the back too.
Oh hell yeah! So if a
Eyes
fish
built
short
in.
strikes it, it's just gonna cut its lips all up, and you're gonna be able to find that thing washed on the bank.
Oh man, dude, this is fishable actually.
Dude, you should make a
I
video
might
catching
have to.
fish on it.
Oh yeah, I got to.
So,
Um,
so
yeah,
let's kind of break it down for the guys listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you guys are listening to. So, what would you say, like a 4-inch glide bait, maybe?
yeah. Next to the Nugget, I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same. It's literally the OG Nugget.
yeah. So we're looking at a 4-inch glide bait, normal size, like two-piece bait, like you guys are familiar with. But instead of being one or two split ring or like eyelets holding the bait together, it's got two eyelets, but they are literally on the top and the bottom of the bait screwed into the bait, it looks like from what I'm seeing. And it is
Yeah,
just
they are.
two,
There's
yeah.
no way to get them off.
No, there's no pin. It's literally two eyelets married together. They probably bent them to each other, and that is the hinge point. That is absolutely crazy. It's kind of a good idea. I'm surprised that people don't do that now. And then on the
For real.
backside, if you guys are familiar with the like the Gilroyd or the Depths codename bass, how you can put the hook sideways on the cheeks. So this is the same thing on the back. There is a frog style hook on the left and the right side screwed in to the side of the bait. So you have four hooks in the back, and then you also have a frog hook on the bottom of the front half of the bait, on the head of the bait that is like
Oh,
pinned
dude,
in.
it snaps
Whoa,
in
whoa, that's
like a
like the
mag
coal
draft.
shaft. Yeah, the mag shaft, the coal shaft,
Yeah.
the tyrant, like the front frog hook literally clips into the chin and just sits there and is held in place. Dude, that is
Wait, so do the
crazy.
side ones.
That is
The
absolutely
side ones
insane.
clip out too.
Huh. Is it
That
wood?
is
Does it feel
wild.
like it's made out of
I'll
wood?
have to shoot it. Oh yeah, it's definitely made out of wood, and it definitely has some sort of hardener on it. Like how someone would stain like
Yeah.
water treat some wood.
Yeah.
It feels water treated, like it's gonna sink like a rock.
It is probably like some goat fat that they melted down or some horse fat that they melted down and dipped the bait into and some rendering.
Exactly.
So yeah, some rendering that they rendered down and just dunked it in and said, "Yep, some guy in 113 years is gonna try to fish this thing and it's gonna sink like a rock."
Yeah, I'll do a full on like just overview video
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
can collab on it when this comes out so that people who are just listening can
yeah.
have a visual context.
Dude, absolutely insane. I appreciate you showing that. Honestly, that is closer to a glide bait now than I was expecting. Like you had texted me about it and I
Me
completely
too.
forgot
Yeah.
about it. That is pretty close to what we have 113 years later.
I know. That's insane.
Crazy,
And
dude.
hey, and then we got guys who are acting like they invented
Yeah.
the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the wheel was made before their grandparents, while their grandparents were alive. Absolutely, absolutely crazy, man.
The year after the Titanic sank.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, crazy, dude. Crazy, crazy. Again, what is the website and what's the Instagram so guys can come check you out?
It's yorkcasting.com, and my Instagram is yorkcasting_co. So
Perfect.
York Casting and York Casting. If you just type that in on either, it should pop straight up. Just York Casting.
Sweet. Heck yeah, man. And as always, I'll put all Caleb's stuff in the show notes. You guys can go follow him and as well as check out, pick up some nuggets, or there might be some aces on the site or some Yorks on the site around the time when you guys are hearing this. But as always, I want to thank Caleb for coming on, dude. Super fun episode. We talked about all sorts of cool stuff. We got to see the oldest original glide bait, absolutely crazy. Again, I thank you for showing that, dude. We
Yep.
got to really pick your brain about the nugget and the ace and the York. So I appreciate that, man. Hopefully, you guys have a very successful drop in the next couple days when we're recording this. Obviously, after you guys are listening to this, I know guys are super excited about your baits, and your guys' baits are proven. Guys are catching fish on them, whether they're swim bait guys or they're just normal guys who want to get into the swim bait scene or kind of the conventional scene. They're still catching fish on your baits, which I think means something. It means a whole lot to me if a guy can pick up a bait, catch fish on it that maybe isn't necessarily super well rounded with the whole swim bait thing. So I think what you guys are doing is absolutely awesome. You guys are kind of pushing the way for people who aren't necessarily swim bait or die into the scene. I think that's super cool, and you guys are capturing it in a cool way with the whole media side of things as well. I think that's something that a lot of bait builders lack. So that always means a lot to me when guys are kind of filming their experiences and like showing what it takes to make a bait, York approved to post and post for sale and stuff. And the fact that you guys kind of
Right.
capture that stuff with the camera and put it all out, no matter the good, the bad, if you break off on a fish or whatever else it may be, dude, I think that's super cool, you guys. And I love what you guys are doing, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man.
No, man, I really appreciate you having me. This is a podcast that I've wanted to be on for a while, so it's cool, full circle. Some of the legends that I really look up to,
Yeah,
you've had the opportunity to interview them, and I've listened to them speak, and it's just crazy. Like again, full circle, hearing them say certain things, and then as I'm walking a path that's similar to the one that they already successfully have walked, running into the same issues, running into the same scenarios, dealing with the same people and all
yeah.
of that stuff. It's really cool to be on here and talk about it from my experience in a new age,
Mhm.
and yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. We got to collab, dude. We got to
Yeah.
book a trip or something and do
Heck
something
yeah, dude.
fun for real.
Heck yeah, dude, for sure. But yeah, man, outside of that, as always, I'll put all Caleb's stuff in the show notes in the description so you guys can go follow him. Do you guys have a YouTube channel? That's one thing I forgot to ask you.
Yeah, York Casting TV. Like I said, everything's York Casting,
Perfect.
and we kind of separate it by the last two letters. So York Casting Co., yorkcasting.com, and then York Casting TV. So those are our three. And yeah, we just actually posted a video overviewing the nugget completely in 5 different scenarios, from live scope to busting fish to overstructure to multi-species, and then of course in current. So I cover all 5 of those and go into depth on all 5 of those things if you guys are interested in the nugget when you go check out our YouTube page.
Heck yeah, dude. I'll put that in the show notes too so you guys can go have some stuff to watch after you listen to this podcast. Even if you're at work, you can go give it a listen while you guys are doing whatever you got to do. But as always, thank you for coming on, Caleb. I appreciate the time, man. Super fun episode. I hope you guys listening enjoyed. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next one. See you guys.